All right, folks, we're going to take a look at Phase 3 N'Zoth and what we need to clean up. Overall execution and survivability, we just have to tighten up, and it really comes down to two pretty simple things. So we'll get started here with the replay and the beginning of Phase 3. We've got Shattered Ego up. Both teams have starting to collapse together. We've asked for stacking, and our stacking is not exactly the tightest stack in the world here. So this is going to pose problems when Evoke Anguish comes. And even though this first one is not as bad as the later ones, I'm going to use it to highlight how tightly we really need to be stacking. So here comes Evoke Anguish. It's out with that burst. Now we're in a countdown to when it's going to drop. So what I want to point out here is a couple of things. Our stack is not really a stack. We've got people hiding out back here. We've got people up in the front. We've got people on the sides. That means when the puddles drop underneath the people on the left side, since we're moving left, all the rest of the raid on the right that's going to cross this way is going to cross through those anguish puddles, and that's some big risk on sanity loss, speed debuff, and damage. So truly our stack has got to be about getting right on top of the tank so that we look like there's only one character in the screen. The other thing to pay attention to is the timer countdown. So even though the timer says 3, what we're really waiting for is to get the chat bubble timer to 1. Now what you'll notice is I'm running a weak aura's countdown for when that puddle drops. The puddle drops when this timer reaches 1. When it shows 1, the position of the puddle is now set. It actually forms. And then until it gets to 0, you have time after it appears as 1 to move before any loss of sanity or the speed debuff or damage occurs to you, because at the 0 is when the actual puddle goes active and causing its abilities. So we want it to get to 1, and then we move. So that's why you'll see my timer here shows 2 on puddle drops, because 2 seconds from now our chat bubbles are going to show a 1, and that's when the puddle drops. So let me get things playing again, and what we're going to see here is now you can see the puddles are formed, even though we still have the number 1 in the chat bubbles above everyone's head. So the puddles dropped the moment it ticked to 1, and they haven't gone active yet until those chat bubbles disappear. So it's move time. But you can see our spread on the puddles is not as tight as we'd like. It's still kind of in this pattern where this much space is being taken up, instead of it just being a singular puddle on top of each other. So that's what we're ultimately aiming for in each and every Evoke Anguish. So now what we're looking at is we have a soak on the Thought Harvester. Everyone who is sub 30 on sanity needs to get out. Which means when we look at this, Gothic and Thalen are both sub 30, so neither of them should be in here doing a soak, unless they're actually already channeling their neck and they're going to wind up being topped up before that goes off. So we can see Gothic is outside, Thalen is in, but I think from what I can see here, it looks like Thalen's channeling his neck, so he'll be okay. We'll see it go off. The subsequent drop. Nope, Thalen actually took the hit there too, but he's okay. But he's in a dangerous spot along with Jom. So now what we'd like to try to be able to do is get them to channel and top up. And I can see Jom's already at this moment climbing up on sanity level. So now we're in our other mechanic that is our challenge, is the gaze, or the stupefying glare. So as this one was coming, it gave us, Bigwigs told us, we're going to want to be heading right. The eye spawned literally right at us. It's going to start rotating for a few degrees before it actually sends the beam out. Our add-on also indicates we're going to be going right. But it's pretty common sense. Once you see it and which direction it starts to rotate, we need to be going in a way that's going to get us away from that beam based on our position. So this one we're actually fine on. It really doesn't cause us any troubles at all. So we'll get another thought harvester out. We're going to deal with soaking him, and then we're going to have another evoke anguish right behind it. So as we look at it here, Thalen is, and Jericho and Rue are all sub 30 on sanity. And as we look around, Jericho has moved out of the soak. Rue is right here, and Thalen is here. So ideally, they're either going to move out, they're going to channel their neck, or they're at risk of becoming mind controlled by N'Zoth. Okay, so we've got Evoke Anguish is about to be put out by N'Zoth. Here it comes. Now we're going to have to stack. We're asking for a stack, and we don't have a stack working. We have the raid all over here. The stack point is to be the tanks. Angel is moving in the right direction. Ideally, we want to drop this next small puddle patch as close to this as we can to preserve space. If we stay where we are, we're going to wind up with multiple puddles that are going to consume a very large portion of the room, and that's going to potentially hurt us down the stretch if we run out of space. So we need to be very clean and tight. Not to mention, if we get a big puddle here, all of these people are going to need to head this way, and they're going to now either have to go all the way around it, or they're going to risk going through it and losing sanity, taking damage, and a speed debuff. So we need to do a much better job on that. We ultimately wind up without that happening. So right now with a 1 countdown, and puddles are, it's just ticked, and what you're going to see is the 1 is still showing, and you can just now start to see the puddles starting to show up. And they're, you know, you can see them there, they're anchored. Now is the moment that we all move. Now, we're going to have a big problem because we have puddles that are going to be here, and we're going to have puddles here, and all of these people have to go this way. So even though you may be okay with dropping your puddle here, you're going to potentially take our raid members out of this pole by not having it stacked. Tanks are always the stack. So now let's look at what we've had in Carnage. So at this point, because of that problem with our lack of stacking, we've lost Katie. Jericho's low, Jom's low, Jules, Thalen, Gothic all took significant damage, and we had a little bit of damage here with Vol and Mel, which means they also lost sanity. And so we impacted a third of the raid with poor stacking, which meant losing Katie. Now healers recover from this, so we don't have anyone else die. However, the problem is we took unnecessary sanity loss on top of that. So I just have to stack on the tanks at all times, and there should be no exception to that in this particular phase. All right, so we have our first mine grasp. This is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot that happens here, and we'll see, as we come out, we'll have a new thought harvester, and we need to get stacked because right behind that is an evoke anguish coming. There's the evoke anguish. So now we're into countdown on puddles, and then not far behind that, 11 seconds from now, we've got our next glare. So what we need to be doing is getting stacked again as the timers count down. Now we're also going to have to do a soak. So we've got, fortunately, nobody below 30 sanity, so everyone can be a part of the soak. But again, we're not tight. We've got people here, and we've got a large cluster instead of a tight stack. So what's going to wind up happening is we need to get everybody over here to be out of the puddles, but inside the big circle to help soak the harvest thoughts. And as you can see right here, we've got people that did not take off at one, or they were on the right side and are having to cut through all of the puddles that were dropped by people not in the stack. So now at this point, we've lost Woog, we've lost Zand, Rex is in trouble, we lost Rue, Vol's about to go, and you can just see the extra carnage that we've created from yet another poor stack. And we just lost Angel there as well. So now half the raid is gone. And all of the deaths have been really due to poor stacking. So now we're going to come out here and we're going to watch again. So Evoke Anguish is out again. Now this is the point where we get our double Thought Harvester spawn. So ideally we'd be holding hero for this point. Our dilemma is we've lost half the raid. So we again, Evoke Anguish is out. Everybody should be stacking on the tank. And we have to soak, and soaking with half the raid is going to cause us greater sanity loss per person. And we're not stacked, we're spread, as you can see. We've got people here, we've got people here, which is going to lead to more deaths. So at this point we have lost the poll, and literally almost every problem in this poll was associated with poor stacking and bad timing on moving. So again, chat bubble shows the number 1, time to move. But you must wait until then, and you must be stacked on top of the tank. And if we do that and do that properly on every Evoke Anguish, I feel that we will lose almost nobody through the course of Phase 3.